Welcome to Media Melanie Talks TV. I'm Melanie, and today I am back with a very special treat. I've got Craig Elsten from Annie and Elsten on 97.3 The Fan in San Diego joining me. We're going to go over our top 10 TV shows of 2024. So, Craig, hello, how's it going?
It's going great, Media Melanie. You have been so gracious to us all year long, joining us on Fridays on the show and giving us amazing content in the 1 o'clock hour. And so, I mean, it's only right that I come on over across to your side so that we can talk about the best shows of the year. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you. And I really appreciate both of you having me on the show. It's been a lot of fun this past year. And I mean, there has been a lot of great TV. So we've got some ground to cover. We've got a couple of overlapping shows. And, I had a really hard time narrowing my list down. And I ended up going on vibes and visceral reactions and what shows I really looked forward to watching the most each week. So it's kind of where I went and how I formulated my list.
Absolutely. So, along those same lines, it's funny when I was doing crossing streams every week, one of the number one questions I always got was, how do you do it? How do you watch so much? And I think those people made an assumption when they asked the question that I was watching every sporting event in the world and all the television in the world. And that wasn't the case. I was able to edit out some of the sports I didn't like when I wasn't on sports talk radio. But now that I'm on sports talk radio, I got to watch all these sports in the world. So this was the most challenging year that I've had in terms of just trying to keep up with everything that's going on. And there are several shows, I just want to say that off the top, that are going to be on your top 10, that would probably be on my top 10 if I had just gotten around to watching it. But for one reason and another, time ran out.
Hey, I got you. I never finished Shogun, which is on many people's lists for top 10 of the year. So I feel like it probably would have been on my list. I do know it is on yours, spoiler alert. But yeah, with so much good TV, it is hard to take it all in and really hard to narrow down. So what you got for your number 10?
All right. So with that said, with that little tiny preamble, that I please consider this an arbitrary list that is not thought of as complete. And definitely, pre-existing biases creep in, all of that, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, these are 10 shows I think everyone would like if they watched. And I'm going to start with one that was actually so early in the year that I had to think about whether it qualified or not. But it did, because the season finale definitely landed in 2024. And that's season 5 of Fargo. Noah Hawley's anthology series that has been on FX on Hulu and is in its 5th season, as mentioned, and I thought had a huge comeback season in season 5, with Juno Temple playing kind of a almost a ramped up Home Alone in terms of the ways that she would foil bad guys with homemade devices. She was one of my favorite characters of the year. Incredibly well played. John Hamm is the heavy on the other side. He leaned into it so much. It was absolutely brilliant. And Noah Hawley always gives you a visual spectacle, always gives you a really inventive directing and very thoughtful, plot. And I lots of visual excitement. The big shootout early in the season, just spectacular in terms of the way it was filmed. So overall and all around, I thought a great show. And I had to get it into the top 10, understanding it was so many months ago. Maybe if we did it in March, it would be much higher up. But Fargo season 5 is my number 10 show.
Excellent. And I do remember it was on your mid-year list as well. And we talked about that. I watched it as well. And I am all about John Hamm. So I enjoyed that as well. So that is a great pick.
Well, I'm glad you liked it. But what is your number 10?
Well, I've got From on MGM Plus. It stars Harold Perrineau from Lost. It is about a group of people who get trapped in this town. There are a lot of strange happenings, and season 3 answered so many questions for the fans of the show. And I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but it's one of those shows that really just makes you think, and you're not really exactly sure where it's going until this season when they gave us some answers. It's already been renewed for season 4. It's going to come in 2026, and it's one of those ones I'm very excited about. So MGM Plus, it's a tough streamer though too, right? Because not a lot of people are subscribed. It's a smaller and newer streamer, but this is a show I've been screaming to people to watch. It's got a little sci-fi, some thriller, some mystery. And if you liked Lost, this is probably going to be up your alley. It's on some people's radars, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah, it needs to get on mine. I know you're big into the horror genre, a lot more than I am. I'm usually with a horror show, I get impatient in not what's the right way to put it? It's the reverse of impatience almost. I always like the mysterious part, and then when they actually show the cards, usually I get bored at the point where it's like, oh, well, it's actually this, and it's because of that, and it's the thing in the sky that does the stuff. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right, cool. I liked it better when I was confused.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I get that.
but with that said, I've seen it's not just on your list. I've seen it on many lists. People talking about how good From is and how good this season is. So, one of those ones I got to put on the queue, and hopefully that's what folks utilize this show. Whether it's audio or video, will use it is take some notes. Create your own notes app thing, and maybe create a queue of stuff that you want to catch up on over the holidays.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good one. With that, Craig, what about your number 9?
Okay, number 9 for me, another show a little bit earlier in the year, but we're going to We Are Lady Parts on Peacock, season 2 of the show. I know we talked about this during the course of our Friday get-togethers, but I just absolutely love this show, and I think it's kind of one of the hidden gems that is out there right now, chronicling an all-female Muslim punk band in the UK. Extremely funny. Nita Manzoor is the showrunner, creator, writer, director of everything. But Anjana Vasan, who plays Amina, the lead, she's incredible. What a great physical actress. She really plays humor well. She plays deadpan. She has eyes that can win every scene. Incredibly emotive face. And I thought season 2 took a great premise in season 1 and progressed it even further and really asked the right questions that I like in a second season in terms of what happened before, how would that impact these people going forward. But the biggest thing is it's a laugh riot. It's really a lot of fun. The music is great on the show as well. So it's really a feel-good show. Some curse words out there, so maybe not with the little kids around, but We Are Lady Parts is an absolute delight to me.
I also love that show. In fact, it is on my list as well at number 5. And I have you to thank for that. That was a recommendation that you gave on the radio. So I dove in. It was easy to watch. And also, the album ended up on my top listens of the year. I love the music so much. Bashir with the Good Beard is just, I don't know. There's something about that song that I just adore. So that is a really fantastic pick. I love that.
Oh, that is great. So while we've knocked your number 5 off the list as well, just keep that pegged up there. But what's your number 9?
I've got Baby Reindeer on Netflix. This was a little bit controversial in the media. It's based on a true story about stalking and mental health and trauma. And the person it was based on definitely took some issue with that and, some legal situations with Netflix and whatnot. But at the heart of it, it is about a woman who ends up taking a liking to this gentleman and ends up stalking him. And it's very disturbing. And it really stuck with me throughout the year. I wasn't sure if it would end up on my top 10 or not, but it's one that I just keep going back to in my mind because it really does dive deep into the mental health, into the trauma of it all. And it was just so disturbing to watch, particularly episode 4. I mean, that was just wild. So not necessarily in a good way, but in a way that really left an impact on me. So that's what I've got.
There's a couple of shows on your list that when I saw them there, I was really happy that they were there so that they're on the show, even though they're not on my list. And Baby Reindeer isn't on my list probably precisely because of its quality and the way that it's designed to unnerve and the amount that it was unnerving. I can't say I enjoyed it. I can say that it's affecting and that it's incredibly well done, and that Richard Gadd, really deserves all the flowers he gets for putting this story out there. But it's not for everyone, and certainly I felt like it kind of wasn't for me, but I did really
But you can't stop
appreciate how it
watching
looked.
it, right? I
Right.
mean, it was a
That's
train
it.
wreck essentially that, you know.
Yeah, those are the shows that are the hardest for me, Melanie, because of the ability to stop, pause, close the window, uh, do something else, do anything else. Like if you were trapped in the movie theater, you would be cool. But like I get into these incredibly uncomfortable things. I'm just like, "Mm, okay, and let's go watch a rerun a match game or something. You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's just
That is one that requires a much lighter watch afterwards to kind of unwind and get your mind in a better place, I think. So, yeah, I totally see that.
Absolutely. Okay, so that takes me to 8 as we continue to wind up our top 10s here, and I'm pretty sure this is on both of our lists. Say Nothing, which is one that you recommended, and then I went to watch on Hulu.
Yes. Wow. That is on my list. Number 4, I believe. And that one took us down quite the historical path and was also impactful in a very traumatic, I don't know if that's the right word, but a very hard hitting way. And it covered the troubles in Ireland, I think, very well. And what stood out for me for that, Craig, was I actually felt some sympathy for these people who were actually terrorists. And I felt really bad about myself for feeling that way after watching. So to get that sort of emotion from the story, it hit for me.
Yeah, me too. And actually, that was an element of it that I think not only did I grapple with, but I think the show grapples with itself, which is here are these protagonists. They're in the Irish Republican Army. They are going to bomb and kill people and destroy, buildings and injure people and kidnappings. Really some bad stuff. And
Yes.
on one level, absolutely, you're going to be in Dolores Price's corner. You're going to be there with the Price sisters during their hunger strike. Like, um, you've got you're going to have to be on that side kind of emotionally because that's where the show lives. But I do like how clear-eyed it was in showing some really, really bad decisions and bad deeds. And the portrayal of Jerry Adams, I think, very important all the way through as kind of a signpost of what's going on along the way. But I felt like there was a tiny little bit of a drop in maybe intensity or something right at the end. Last couple of episodes of Say Nothing as it got more into the present day. But with that said, there's some incredibly powerful moments, and I think it's a really worthy watch overall.
Definitely. I really enjoyed how they used the narrators looking back on their lives as a device to tell the story, and seeing the regret specifically from Dolores just was very, very strong for me. It made me interested in reading the book, which is strange because normally I would read a book before I watch a show, but it really got me more interested in that period of history. You had also recommended watching Derry Girls after watching Say
Yes.
Nothing. I took your recommendation and I binged that all the way through all 3
Yes.
seasons. I loved it, Craig. And just thank you for that recommendation. Those characters, the smart writing, the way that they used comedy with this backdrop of the troubles and everything going on in Ireland during that time period. Brilliant show. I'm shocked I didn't watch it sooner, but thank you for that. Irish television is just phenomenal. I mean,
Right?
wow, so good.
I mean, let's just say it again for the people in the back row. Dairy Girls is one of the funniest shows of the last 5 years. It is just nonstop funny. I mean, get to that first season episode where Mother Mary's crying in the church, or is she?
Oh my
Um,
goodness. Oh, I loved that. I fell in love with these girls and their family and their quirks and just everything. And it was just so meaty. And really, if you have watched Say Nothing as a viewer, could not recommend enough watching Dairy Girls afterwards just to kind of lighten the mood a little bit.
yes, exactly so. Okay, so we're over to you for 8. Is that right?
Yes, we are. And this is a newcomer. I actually had to bump off Mr. and Mrs. Smith because Black Doves on Netflix
Mm.
just got me. I did this 12 days of binge miss video and I made the first day of Christmas Black Doves with Keira Knightley. I binged this show so fast. It's a spy thriller. It takes place at the holidays. Dare I say it's the Lethal Weapon of TV shows in that it's
Oh,
not necessarily a Christmas show, but with the backdrop of Christmas in London and this spy thriller story with lots of love. Ben Whishaw is in it, Sarah Lancashire, who I know you like as well. This was a great December watch. And if you're watching this video and you've not yet watched Black Doves on Netflix, it's only 6 episodes. It's already coming back for another season. It's been a real hit on Netflix, and I loved it. I just thought it was kind of like the Slow Horses meets Killing Eve type of vibe, entertaining, maybe not quite as intellectual, I would say, but overall, just for the entertainment factor and the holiday vibes, I had to put it on the list. So that's what I've
Well,
got.
the only reason I haven't started it yet, Melanie, is because I had to power watch some things that I had to finish. Again, completism, the rules of the land, I shall not infringe. So we were going to rank shows we finished. So I had to be judicious, and this show, I would just say, has been a top priority for the last week over here. In Casa de Elston, I've been really trying to make sure that I had the list right, and then I got the things done. So as such, I didn't take on any new projects over the last week. So I haven't started Black Doves, but I can't wait to. And I've seen a lot of good things. I know spy thriller. I know I'm going to love it because you'll hear me gush about another such show momentarily.
Yes. All right. Well, that sounds good. All right, Craig. So what do you have for your number 7? I believe we're on your number 7.
Yes.
Okay.
Number 7. Okay. This is where I start to explain my list in a way, in that I feel like I have a very tight 5 up top. I have kind of a hard and fast 5, and there was some thought of movement. There was definitely some sincere thought about how the top 3 would be aligned. But I feel like there's kind of a line, and they're all our dramas in the top 5. So it was very, very difficult to push something else up into that group. But these next 2 shows are arguably 2 of my favorite shows of the year, and 2 of the best, sweetest shows of the year. And it was extremely hard for me to rank one over the other. I think they're both incredible, and I think they're both worthy of attention and of passion and of heart and of everything else. So I just went with the one that clicked with me in its season just a tiny bit more, which means I'll talk about that one momentarily. My number 7 is one of the best shows you haven't watched. It is Somebody Somewhere on Max.
Ooh, you're right. I have not watched that, but everybody is talking about it. So it is definitely on my list. And why don't you tell us more about it and why we should be watching?
Okay, well, the 3rd and final season is what I'm ranking here as the 7th best show of 2024. But I would say all 3 seasons, and the show is done, and the 21 episodes of Somebody Somewhere, all of them a half an hour long, all incredibly digestible, 3 seasons of 7 episodes each. I could easily put that in a top 5 or top 6 or there for the last 4 years. And I mean that honestly. Somebody Somewhere is the kind of television show that I'm afraid you are simply not going to see or find by the end of this decade. It's small, it's intimate, it has a pace that is very straightforward. It's a show that will make you smile. It's a show about friendship. It's a show about authenticity, being yourself, accepting who you are, accepting your family for who they are, letting go in certain situations, adult emotions, things that like I said, aren't easy to be attached to a superhero movie, aren't easy to be attached to Zendaya or to, Chris Pratt, or to, whichever star you want to give all the money to. The current formula is for big, huge, existing IP, bring it forward. Do we have 8 seasons, right? All of this. Somebody Somewhere isn't that. The focus, though, and the lead is Bridget Everett, and she is the creator of the show. She is the star of the show. Bridget Everett spent years in New York doing vaudeville. She's known for she's got an incredible voice. And she would do these like late night body crazy shows. She has these like really salty hilarious songs that she was known for. And that's how she kind of made her name. And she plays a version of herself on the show. She plays a character named Sam, but it's basically her who comes back from being in New York to her home where she grew up, Manhattan, Kansas. And again, this is authentic to Bridget Everett's life because her sister has passed away due to cancer. And she comes back to be with her family, kind of reconnects in the small town. That's season 1, right? That's where it starts. And you get 3 seasons. But the friendship between Sam and Joel, who's played by Joel Hiller, who is just Jeff Hiller, pardon me, who's just an absolute delight, is, I think, one of the most authentic portrayals of 2 adults being friends that you could possibly find. And this show just lives in small moments, 2 people on a couch, sharing a drink, giggling together, making each other laugh. Each season has a plot. Here's a thing that we're going to get to by episode 7, but it's all just right there in this lovely pace, the shine of the Kansas sun, the sunflowers in the distance. It's all right there for you. It's a show that takes you away into a different tempo, a different place in the country, a different state of mind, but it's really a show about acceptance. It's an emotional program that's so sweet. It's fun, it's light, it's enjoyable, and I just can't recommend it enough. I think it's the kind of show that, like, I don't know, it's almost like a healing pill. Like, you should take this. It'll make you feel better. That's what Somebody Somewhere is.
Now, let me ask you this. I've seen out there that this was the final season, but then there are apparently petitions out there for more. Did it end in a way where they left the door open to tell more story, or did it conclude in kind of a wrapped up nicely in a bow type of ending?
Well, the dragon killed them all. Spoiler alert, but no, you could absolutely go back, because actually one of the things I love, Melanie, about each season is it just kind of feels like you're dropping in. Like you're dropping in on this moment when these things were happening, but you could have dropped in at a different moment when something else was happening.
Right.
And it would have been just as compelling and just as interesting. But really, Bridget Everett puts herself out there. I really, really respect it a ton. She does not glam herself up. She does the opposite of that throughout. She's a plus-sized woman. She really plays into that, leans into it in a number of situations. Season 3 is about her, not all, but doctor wants her to start eating better, but she feels stuck in the mud. Everyone in her life has been moving on, and she feels like she's stuck in the same place, and it's a very relatable feeling, I think, to so many people out there. But like I said, just keeping it broad, I can't recommend the show enough, and it's crazy that I'm going to have 6 shows that I have higher than this.
Right. Is this an all-time favorite for you, Craig? Is this an all-time list type of show, or maybe not quite there? Oh, yes.
No, absolutely.
Great.
It's on the all-time list. It's one of the most beautiful, sweet little things, like precious, like something that you just like that feeling when you get back to it. And it's a show that's made me cry each year. It's just, there's so much heart, there's so much tenderness in the show, and when you see the characters' interactions, it'll all speak for itself. It's a beautiful little thing.
That sounds great. I've definitely got that on my list for 2025, so can't wait to watch that one. So that brings us to my number 7, which is another Netflix show, 3 Body Problem. And this one was very sciencey, had political, human elements to it as well. Very smart. A lot of attractive scientists on the show. I didn't realize that.
Extraordinarily beautiful. As a matter of fact, if you are super hot, usually you go into space science,
quantum mechanics and whatnot, right? Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But it tells the story of extraterrestrials who made contact with the human race back in China in the 1960s. And it kind of spans decades and tells the story of essentially the survival of the human race. But it's done in a smart way. It's very understated. It's not alien. It's more based on the science of it all and how they're going to solve this problem. And this one is actually by the creators of Game of Thrones. And there are already the full 3 seasons confirmed. It is based on a book as well. So we have 2 more seasons of this show, and I'm just very excited for it. I'm endlessly fascinated with these themes of the science and quantum mechanics and entanglement and all of that sort of stuff. So this one really hit hard. It is sci-fi, but it watches like more of a drama. So I had to add this one to my list. I loved it. Highly recommend. Netflix put out a lot of good content this year, and I was surprised I didn't have more Apple TV Plus shows on my list, but I've got like 6 out of my 10 shows are Netflix, and this was another one. So here we are.
Well, this is certainly the other one on your list that stood out to me that I was really, really glad was on there, because I was wrestling whether or not I was going to put Three Body Problem on my list. And then when I saw that it was on yours, I felt like that was okay, it was a little bit, almost of a fudge on my part. Like, okay, she's got it. So we can highlight more shows on the program overall. But Three Body Problem was terrific. It's incredibly expansive. It's hard to nail something with this type of scope, and that is being as ambitious as Three Body Problem is, a show where a lot of the action is taking place within a virtual reality, alongside what's happening in reality. And so in that sense, it's dense. I
Yes.
read most of the book, Three Body Problem, which was
Oh.
translated from the Chinese, and it's extremely dense. It's extremely difficult to get all the way into, and to get to the aha moments, where you understand what's going on. But I thought it was very, very well done. Now, I do have an inherent bias. Rafi Cantor, who's one of our co-hosts on Padres Hot Tub, was the assistant to Alexander Wu, who is right there with Benioff and Weiss as the 3 showrunners of Three Body Problem. He worked on the entire first season of Three Body Problem. So, I had a reason to come in and like the show. It almost made me want to be tough on it because my friend was on it. But I thought it was really, really good. And I think it's really, really hard to do expansive science fiction that was written from an Eastern perspective and to turn it into a Western streaming television show, special effects, the whole thing.
Yes.
And I thought Three Body Problem was great. I would recommend it to anyone if they're looking for that immersive. I want to get in on a franchise. It's the opposite of Somebody Somewhere. It really is. It's a great example of how it can be big on the big side, where Netflix wants to play, compared to something that would be a tiny speck, inside the first body of the 3 bodies with the problems.
Right, definitely. And it's funny you mentioned about us being able to cover more shows. And, I really struggled with adding some of these. And I was thinking of adding Fallout to my list. I did not do it. I opted instead for Three Body Problem because I do think it is a little bit smarter. And really, Silo and Fallout are such similar shows that I don't know. Neither one made my list. But Three Body Problem, I just had to put on there. And I'm glad you enjoyed that one too.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely terrific. Okay, so that takes me to 6. And of a like pair, these two could be a pair in your hand, is probably the show that I thought was the most heartfelt of 2024. A show that I adore, A Man on the Inside, on Netflix, starring Ted Danson, created by the great Michael Schur, who was from The Office to Parks and Rec to The Good Place. Michael Schur specializes now in doing this incredibly mature, refined adult comedy that still is funny and sweet and could fit on an NBC Thursday night, no problem. But A Man on the Inside follows Ted Danson's character, and I'll grab the cast list here to get the character name right, who has lost his wife. He's a retired professor at Cal State East Bay. He's living up in Northern California. His daughter and their family lives in Sacramento, away from him, like an hour away, but still away from him. So he's kind of alone in the house where he and his wife used to live. He's a busy mind. Charles Neuendijk, the name of the character. He's a busy mind that doesn't have a lot to do. He's clipping out newspapers and sending it to his daughter, annoying the heck out of her. And she's like, get a hobby, like figure something out to do. And so he answers an ad in the newspaper to work for a private eye. And he becomes undercover at a nursing home because somebody's prized jewelry has been stolen. And so he is there posing as just a new resident of the nursing home. But his goal is to create a suspect list and figure things out and find evidence and eventually, solve this crime. And his employer, the private investigator, is working with him. And, he lets his daughter in on the act. And there's a hilarious episode where she's kind of his co-conspirator for a little while. But that's the plot overlay for A Man on the Inside. What makes this show so wonderful, though, is that it's a show that's willing to explore themes that you don't often see explored on television, but it does it in such a beautiful way. And that is aging, letting go of people who pass away, how to still be yourself when you get to a certain age. What are you allowed to feel anymore? What are you allowed to do? All of that is explored. What happens when somebody you meet dies? Because you're meeting people at such a later age. Are you willing to put yourself out there when you understand that risk that person might not be there soon? All of memory loss, what happens to you is you get all of this is explored. Ted Danson is of the age. I mean, he's obviously an incredible specimen of a man. He's so funny. He's so elegant. This is just a perfect encapsulation of what has made him at his age at the absolute top of his game and better than he ever was on Cheers, where he was great, or anywhere else. Like it's a tour de force performance. There's so much heart to this show. There's a portrayal of teenage kids that is as spot on as anything that speaking as the father of a 13-year-old, as spot on as anything I've seen. Like I had to show things to my wife, like, look at this. This is exactly right. They might as well have filmed my son. So I love A Man on the Inside. 8 half-hour episodes. It's not too big a bite for anybody to take on the holidays. And I just can't recommend it enough.
Yes, I had started this one at your recommendation and absolutely loved the first episode. I do plan to get back to it. I'm a huge Ted Danson fan too, from Cheers to even CSI, The Good Place, which I absolutely loved. So yeah, and I appreciate that they are making content for all ages, especially, as members of the sandwich generation, right? Where we have older parents and we're also caring for kids. It's a show that you could watch with your entire family, with your parents, and, younger people can appreciate more this perspective of aging. And it's nice that they're making a show like that. And Ted Danson is a star. So good pick.
Awesome. All right. Back to you. Tennis ball back across the court.
Yes, I have yet another Netflix at my number 6, One Day. Whew, this one, I laughed, I cried. It gave us a robust 14 episodes, and it's a limited series. It's actually based on the book and the 2011 film with Anne Hathaway, which I actually did not see. It stars Leah Woodall and Mbika Ahmad, and Leah Woodall, of course, is from The White Lotus. And it takes place over the span of a couple of decades, one specific day each year, and tells the love story of these two people who crossed paths when they were younger. And I cried so hard at this show. Again, I really went with visceral reactions and emotions. And this was one I also binged very fast because I just could not stop watching it. It was just so emotional, and it wasn't too sad, but it was sad at the same time. I don't know. It struck a good balance of just emotional range in general and this love story. And it is a nice departure from these other darker shows that I watch. So it's not coming back for more, although I kind of wish it was. And I've heard that they may be adapting another one of this author's books into a show. And so I am really, really hoping that that comes to fruition, because this was just phenomenal. And with limited series, it's nice to know sometimes that that's all that there is. So you don't have to stress out about watching multiple seasons or whatever. But with 14 episodes too, it gave just enough meat to really dive in, and the emotion of it all. This show made me cry more than any other show this year.
Wow.
So that is why One Day made my list at number 6.
Outstanding. Didn't see it, didn't see one frame of it. So if I need to drain the old tear ducts,
yes, you need a good cry, One Day on Netflix, 100%.
Amazing. Wish I could add more, but yeah, I didn't even just boop. And I remember the week that you recommended it as well. And Leo Woodall really great in White Lotus. Heard White Lotus, by the way, coming out in February. I think I
Yes,
heard that.
February. It's going to be in Thailand. We've got Walton Goggins joining the cast. And
Come on.
oh, I am so pumped for this, Craig. I'm actually going to be covering it on my channel every week, and I just cannot wait. White Lotus is one of the best shows out there. It's on Max, and really looking forward to the return of season 3.
I cannot wait myself. Okay, we're to the top 5. We're to rarefied air here. We're into, the best of the best. And I really would rate all 5 shows in my top 5 very closely to one another. I think that you could split hairs. I think they're all of a tier. That's why I said I kind of had a tight 5. I'm like, I can't put any show in this group lower than this, but I could really make an argument for any of these next 5 shows I recommend to be number 1.
Yes.
And if you said, no, I think this one's number 1, I would have said, cool. I agree. It's great.
Ranking things is hard. It's actually much harder than one would expect. So I feel that struggle, Craig.
And it's reductive and it's arbitrary. And I think it's always important to mention that as well. So with that, this is it's a love fest, right? All the things we love. And number 5 is season 2 of The Diplomat. And I thought this show took a quantum leap up in its second season. Not that it was bad in the first season. It was really good, but it was a little, I felt, helter-skelter in the first season, establishing all the characters, establishing this incredible chessboard, so to speak, of characters and being placed. And if you don't know anything about it, the Diplomat follows a power couple, Kate and Hal Weiler. And Kate Weiler is played by Kerry Russell. Hal Weiler is played by Rufus Sewell, who has been a key ambassador to war-torn areas, Afghanistan, Middle East. He's really boots on the ground in tough spots, and always with him doing hard work in a really balanced power relationship. Kate Weiler, played by Kerry Russell, but he's been the lead and she's been in the background. And then in the first episode of season 1, she gets the call to become the ambassador to England. And what follows is, I think, some of the best political drama since West Wing. It's intricate. It's a dialogue show in the best way, where the dialogue is crackling and sharp, and there's going to be clever moments of deceit. There's going to be planting a seed and letting it grow, like all these kind of like more complex 4D type of orchestrations,
layers and layers.
Yes. But at the heart of it is this relationship between Kerry Russell and Rufus Sewell, and they need each other, and they hate each other, and they love each other, and they want each other, and they want to kill each other. And it's just incredible, the push and pull. But season 2 just goes to a whole new level. The global intrigue, global politics, the introduction of a West Wing alum, I don't want to spoil it necessarily, into an incredible role, which she was, well, I said she, so narrowed it down.
Yeah.
So good in.
Incredible.
So good in.
So good.
That probably will get nominated for something along the way. So good. So good. So good. The Diplomat season 2, just an absolute blast.
That was my number 3. And to your point, the top 5 of mine as well could go in any order. And The Diplomat, you had texted me one day and said, hey, are you watching The Diplomat season 2? I said, well, I still haven't watched season 1. It's been on my list. I watched that so fast. And the cliffhanger at the end of season 2 was just, it was phenomenal. And the way that they present Kerry Russell's character, the way they talk about her hair and her image, I just relate to that so much. I am not a high maintenance person. And there was a very relatable factor for this woman who's in a very powerful position, who is more focused on her job than, her looks or maybe her marriage. And I don't know, there was just something that really hit hard. And Kerry Russell was just so good this season. And it's coming back for season 3. I cannot wait. I am so excited for it.
I mean, it better. Otherwise, we'd just be left there on the precipice. So, yeah. One of the best shows of the year, no question about it. And back to your number 5, which I think is one of the ones that I poached earlier.
Yes, yes. And again, at your recommendation, it was We Are Lady Parts on Peacock, season 2. Just noting again how great the music and the soundtrack to that show is. 30-minute episodes are just always such a nice, light watch. And this one just brightened my entire streaming year. I loved it. And again, I have you to thank for that recommendation. It's one of those under the radar shows, right? Not a lot of people know about it. When I mention it to people, they're like, what are you talking about? Maybe that's because it's on Peacock, which is, less popular than Netflix or Paramount or Max or whatever, but phenomenal show. I don't believe it has been picked up for a 3rd season yet, but I am optimistic that we will get one.
Yeah, me too. It's just too good to let go. And the fact that it's a BBC co-pro puts it on safer ground, I think. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm being fantastical about it, but I think so.
Yes.
Okay, so number 4 for me, and this was the last show in the barn for me in terms of one that we had talked about many months earlier when it started to come out. I began to watch. I completely enjoyed. Like, I want to be clear, like I completely enjoyed. I was all the way in, but something happened and I paused the middle of the third episode maybe, and there it sat on Prime Video, just for the longest time, and then it drifts down the queue, and then other things come, and the next thing you know, you haven't finished a show that you needed to finish, because it's, I thought, one of the very best shows of the year, and that's Mr. and Mrs. Smith on Hulu. Some shows have it all, and Mr. and Mrs. Smith has it all. It's got Amazon's budget. You want to see Lake Como? You want to see an incredible ski resort? You want to just see money on display everywhere, shooting on location everywhere? All of Bezos' money being put to good use on Mr. and Mrs. Smith. You want humor? The show is funny. Like, it's consistently funny. It takes action and does it in an incredible way, but in a way that it almost like backstages the danger. You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
it's the danger. You don't fear for them as much when they're out there in their spy world as much as you fear them when they're talking to each other.
Right. I mean, the relationship is really front and center in that. And Maya Erskine, who is in Pen 15, this was such a different role for her. And this was meant to be a limited series, and it did so well. It's now been picked up for a 2nd season, and it's going to be an anthology. It'll be a completely different story with different actors. But I had to bump this off my list for Black Doves, and I felt really guilty about it. So I am so glad that you had this on your list, because I also just loved this show and just didn't simply have room for it in my top 10.
Yeah, I just kind of threw superlatives without the brick and mortar of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, kind of playing off the old movie, but Donald Glover and Maya Erskine have both independently signed up to be a part of this very mysterious international spy agency where you only communicate basically through a tablet. No one knows who anyone is. No one knows anyone's motives. No one knows anything. But they wind up not only being partnered together, but as the way that the company works, married, like legally married to one another. And so you've got just this delicious romantic comedy / action drama / spy, slow horses vibe. Who's deceiving who? It's Hiro Murai and Donald Glover. So it's the creative team behind Atlanta, really at the core of this. So all of that incredible intelligent sensibility. Donald Glover, I think, is one of our great auteurs right now in the United States of America. Everything he does, I'm just blown away by. Even, if not every single episode of Atlanta was my favorite overall, I'd say it's one of the best shows of the last 5 years. And I would say that this show, any show Donald Glover is on that he puts his all into, that he's writing, that his brother is writing, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's going to have depth. It's going to have intelligence. It's going to have incredible humor. Hiro Murai is one of our great visual artists. And in addition to the overarching plot, pretty much each episode has a mission with a new guest star, with a new location, with a new action set piece. So you've got that almost network style, like episode by episode It's not just a 9-hour movie, like so many
Right.
people say. So, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I just thought one of the great new shows of 2024, to be sure.
Absolutely. Could not agree with you more. There's been a lot of these political spy shows this year. And again, I do feel guilty for not putting it on my list. So thank you again for having it on yours. It's fantastic show. And that brings us to my number 4, which we've already covered. That was Say Nothing on Hulu. So we can kind of gloss over that. And what's your next one?
Okay, so I created different versions, different drafts of this top 10 where each of the shows in my top 3 were in the number 1 spot.
Okay.
Okay. So now I feel like I'm about to talk about my try number 1 shows, like my three-headed monster of number 1 shows for 2024. And the one that winds up in the number 3 spot is Ripley, which was my number 1 show at mid-season.
Yep.
Ripley is a visual, plotting, and acting masterpiece. It's an absolute masterpiece. The creator, writer, director, Steven Zion, who also did The Night Of, creates tension on the screen, I think, as well as anybody on planet Earth. I don't think anybody is better at just creating visual tension, plot tension, not being over the head, bonking you with the big hammer with it, and allowing a show to affect you in that way. This is a retreatment of the 1955 crime novel, The Talented Mr. Ripley. Many people would remember the Matt Damon movie with
Yes.
Gwyneth Paltrow as probably the way you've seen this done on the screen before. Instead, this is a limited series. It breathes it out much wider. It's done all in black and white. 8 episodes.
Gorgeous.
Filmed in Italy, filmed on location in Italy. Reminded me so many times, Melanie, of watching like an Antonioni movie in terms of just the cinematography and
Yes.
how the sound of the waves crashing, off the Amalfi Coast. Incredible. And within that, Andrew Scott, who plays Ripley, is so brilliant, keeping his cards to the vest, deceitful, the ultimate long con artist, and in his gruesome voyage throughout the course of the show to get to where he winds up getting, he is diabolical in the most masterful way possible. This show was captivating to me. It's the kind of show that I want to watch again, that I want to go in and kind of dive deeper into. But I think technically this is as well done as it possibly could be. It's like 10 of 10, no notes. You nailed it. Ripley is my number 3 show.
It was beautiful, and I agree. The cinematography, the look, the choice to do the black and white was very smart. I had this on my honorable mentions, not because I didn't like it, but because it took me a little bit longer to get through. It did move a little slow, intentionally so. And I do think it worked. The story was great. Dare I say, I enjoyed this limited series more than the movie, and I'm a huge Matt Damon fan. And it really was just simply gorgeous from top to bottom. And to your point, Andrew Scott, he deserved all of the acclaim that he got for playing that role. It was phenomenal. It was a great one.
Okay, that's my number 3, but what's number 3 for you?
Well, Craig, I had The Diplomat season 2 as my number 3. And since we have already discussed that one, we can move on to yours.
Okay, well, bink bonk. But yes,
Yep.
The Diplomat was awesome. Repeat,
Yep.
ditto.
Loved
Diplomat,
it. Love.
amazing. I think maybe the most ambitious show that hits the mark highest is my number 2 show, and that is Shogun, which was designed as a limited series, but now apparently they're going to do a season 2 on Hulu. Of course, this series adopting the James Clavell novel from back when I was a baby. I remember very vaguely when it was originally done as a network TV miniseries in the 1970s. I remember my parents reading this book like when we were on road trips. But Shogun follows a an English sailor whose ship is off course, gets shipwrecked into Japan, and winds up getting thrust not only into Japanese culture, set in the 1500s, I want to say.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, but also into a real geopolitical drama, gets really thrown into the middle of a clash of clans that's going to lead to a war for the heart of Japan and for control of Japan. The original really centered around the white guy that was in the series. What they did in 2024 so brilliantly, Rachel Kondo, Justin Marks, the showrunners of Shogun, is they looked at the truth of this story and the depth of it and the depth of characters and realized that the character of John Blackthorne is kind of an ancillary, something that helps propel the plot. It's an activator of the plot, but it's not the plot. It's not the actual story. The story is of these clans, and there are some of the very best acting performances of the year in Shogun. Now, it's not an easy ask because as a result of all of this, like 85% of the show is in Japanese. You have to have the subtitles on the whole time, which, by
You
the way, I
can't
watch
look at
every
your
show.
phone
Right.
watching the
Yeah,
show.
no,
You
you
have to
cannot.
be dialed in 100%.
That's it. You can't be washing dishes. You can't be folding clothes.
Nope.
You've got to be on the couch, watching, tracking, and locking in. So that, I think, has been easily something that has probably stopped people from getting all the way through. But Hiroyuki Sanada, who plays Toranaga, the head of the key clan that Blackthorne is going to be with, I think has probably the best single acting performance of the year.
Wow.
And there's just so much depth to it. There's so many layers to this show. Anna Sawai also incredible as the young woman who serves as Blackthorne's translator, but you find out has a much, much deeper and sadder history. The clash of East and West, of course, is all there, the misunderstanding of cultures. But this is the show that nails ambition to the scope of Game of Thrones better than any show since Game of Thrones. And there's no dragons, there's
They don't need dragons.
Right. There's flaming arrows. There's, swords. There's a lot of seppuku, which is not great. But Shogun is incredible. It is an absolute masterwork. And it's one of those things like on technical merit alone, it deserves its placement on the list, but then it is so engrossing. It's so enjoyable. The plot is incredible. Much like Game of Thrones, there's this propulsion to it in the second half where all the things that you've been seeing suddenly kind of come together, and then now you understand how everything's operating within one another. I just blown away by how good Shogun is.
I mean, this one is on everybody's list for good reason. I believe I'm on episode 3. And to your point, my only barrier has been I do a lot of my TV watching at night, and I do have a hard time focusing. And another thing, too, is another limited series that got picked up for more. That trend has just been so prevalent within the TV landscape where streamers now just seem to be throwing out everything as a limited series, seeing what sticks. And then it seems like 7 times out of 10 now, we're getting them for a second season. Shogun, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, just to name a couple. So, yeah, I mean, I do plan on finishing it. I just need to really dial myself in and pay closer attention. But from what I've seen, everything that you said just completely tracks. So I am excited to finish it. And yeah, I have a feeling this one is going to be one of those Succession type of shows that's claiming all of the awards during award season. So, for good reason.
Absolutely. Well, there's no more stealing of thunder. I know we have uniques all the way here, so I invite you to unveil your number 2.
Yes, I just adored and loved this one. Yet another Netflix pick. Nobody Wants This, starring Kristen Bell and Adam Brody. I have not seen on-screen chemistry like this in quite some time. The pace at which I finished this show, I just could not stop watching. There was a kiss that just was so electric. And essentially, it's about Joanne, who's a sex podcaster, and a hot rabbi played by Adam Brody. And I'm not going to spoil it, but there's this will they, won't they situation. The entire cast is just hilarious. I laughed out loud more at this show than I think any other thing I watched this entire year. It is coming back for a second season. They're going to be filming it soon. Just the pure comedy. And again, I do skew dark with a lot of my watches, but I could not help myself. I went on the vibes and just, again, how fast I watched it, how much I laughed, the love story behind it. They've got Timothy Simons in this, who's hilarious. Everything about it. It focuses a lot on the clash of cultures a little bit, right? Adam Brody's character is dating a shiksa. And of course, there's a level of acceptance that needs to come into play from his family for her to even be allowed into the scope. And a lot of the show is Kristen Bell's character, Joanne, trying to prove herself to the family and all of the silly antics along the way. But if you're looking for a lighthearted watch, I've got to say, this is probably one of the best comedies of the year. I did consider putting The English Teacher on my list, but in terms of just pure chemistry, romantic comedy, and this Adam Brody, Kristen Bell situation, there was no way this was not making my top 3. So nobody wants this on Netflix. I just adored this show from top to bottom.
I simply haven't watched it, so I can't wait to see it.
Yeah,
Got
it's a
nothing
good
bad
one
to
to
say.
watch with your wife. Watch it with
Yeah.
Mitzi. You know, I feel
Well, I
like you
think I
guys would.
will.
Yeah, it's a good couples watch. So
Well, that's perfect because we need them. We need those commonality shows. So I'm glad that we have that to share together. I look forward to watching it. I really do.
excellent. You'll have to let me know what you think.
I will. Okay, we're to number 1 now.
Woo! All right, Craig, what you got?
We're to some very serious work.
Very serious.
I was so afraid to start season 3 of a show that through the first 2 seasons I felt was arguably my favorite show of the 2020s. And what's going to happen? You build an expectation in your head and then you go, well, what if it lets you down? You know,
It happens.
it's difficult. It actually made me wait. It made me wait. It was worth the wait. I think the show that is improved, that started great and has improved the most season to season to season in the 2020s is Industry on Max. And season 3, which I have to think they thought was their final year, was as good as it was, the best it ever was. The best it ever was. And had to be my number 1 show. And while Ripley was probably the most like beautiful, technically engrossing show, and Shogun had the biggest scope and just was the most ambitious, Industry is a show that I love, that started with something, grew again, and it didn't get too big for itself. It's managed to scale up the proper way to get to an even more incredible place. My pitch on this usually is Euphoria meets Billions.
Oh,
okay.
Spot on. Yeah.
Euphoria meets Billions. If you've never watched the show at all, start with season 1, episode 1. Please do it, where you will be welcomed into Pierpoint, which is a super bank that is a global financial institution, but you are welcomed into the London office of Pierpoint, where you meet a new class of new hires at the institution. And every year, Pierpoint hires a new class, and then by the end of the year, they have reduction in force, or RIF, where they will let go of half of that class, but the remainder will get long-term jobs at Pierpoint. So there's kind of a paper chase element to the first season, as well as you meet the cast, who's going to stay, who's going to go, who's going to make it. That energy flows through Mahila Harold one of our great young actors. She plays Harper Stern, who is a young African-American woman who has come across from the States to London with not a lot known about her, except for her drive, except for her ambition. And she gets the eye of the man who runs one of the key desks, Eric Tao, who is played by the great Ken Lung, who, if you remember all the way back to Lost, you will remember
Love him.
Ken Lung. This is his best performance of his lifetime on this show. This is the role for him as Eric Tao. And the first season introduced you to the characters like Yasmin, played by Marissa Abella, who is incredible, like Gus Saki, played by David Johnson, like Robert Spearing, played by Harry Lottie. All these young people who don't know where they're going, don't know who they are. The show is high octane, it's high stress, it's high party, it's lots of sex, it's lots of drugs, lots of drinking. So, like if that's stuff that triggers you or upsets you, this won't be the show for you. That's why I said Euphoria meets Billions, and I put Euphoria at the front.
Right.
One of the reasons my rewatch got stalled was because I was watching on the big screen, and I think my wife walked in on like 4 straight episodes where someone was having sex at that moment, and she's like, what are you watching? Like what's going on out here? What are you doing? And I think that's what stalled my rewatch in the middle of the year.
I can see that.
But season 3 takes everything that's been built upon the previous 2 years and takes the characters into incredible directions. The other thing is season 3 clearly got the money. It got the checks. So you've got on location shooting, you've got a giant barge, you've got a private jet, like the kind of the accoutrement that you see in Billions all the time. Before, there was a lot of work inside the office in the first season of industry. But I truly believe this is the most electric, captivating show. These characters, it's one of those things, almost like Succession, and Succession was my favorite show prior to this, I'd say, of the 2020s. And I think maybe the best. And the one thing people would bump against Succession is like, who am I supposed to root for? Like everybody is damaged.
Terrible.
Right. Everybody is damaged in some way. And that is certainly true of all of the key characters in industry. But with that, they have found these amazing arcs. And I'm trying to be kind of really broad and speak of it, but I'm just saying this show is pulse pounding. The score is usually very techno. It's very, like just driving you forward, that you feel it. Your pulse pounds on this show. And beautiful people, incredible situations, backstabbing, devious, incredible financial moves, but really it's not like, oh, I'll get scared with the banking. This is about young people. This is about emotion. This is about progress. Who am I? And I can't recommend it highly enough. I made it number 1. I struggled, but this show got me emotionally more than any of the others on the list. And I just think it nailed it. And the funny thing is, they got renewed for a 4th season. Mickey Down and Conrad K, the showrunners, they've got a 4th year now. And the only thing I would say is that season 3 felt like they thought it was the last season, because at the end, every character is in a place. Maybe not the place you thought they would be, but everyone was in a place that I kind of felt like if you left them there and that was the last time you saw them, you would have understood it. You would have been okay with it. So I'm fascinated to see what they do with a 4th season. But I almost feel like these 3 seasons are of an arc, and the arc is a rainbow. It's perfect. And the rainbow is covered with cocaine, but that's okay. That's okay. It's a beautiful, beautiful cocaine covered rainbow industry. It is my favorite show of the year.
All right. Cocaine Rainbow. I love that. And, this is when I started, again, at your recommendation, but also one of my Padres producer friends has texted me multiple times saying, Have you watched Industry yet? Have you watched Industry yet? Have you watched it yet? Multiple times. So I think I'm on episode 2, and similar barrier with all of the sex scenes. It is tough to watch in a family environment. So that is something I will probably have to watch during the day or on my own. So I do plan to get back to it, but I've heard that it is fantastic. I love Euphoria. I love Billions. By the way, Euphoria is coming back for another season, and it'll be like 4 years from the last
Yeah.
season to this one, which I think there should be a cutoff. I don't know. It's like Severance is coming back for season 2, and it's been 3 years since we've seen it. So, I mean, gosh, you got to do a rewatch, right? It's hard to even remember what happens. Yeah, but Euphoria is a great show. Billions is a great show. That is a very accurate description from what I've seen of Industry so far. That brings us to my number 1, Craig. Kind of an unexpected one. It's been a show I've watched for a couple of seasons now, but there is something about season 2 that has just captured my heart. This one is a Bill Lawrence show on Apple TV Plus. Bill Lawrence, of course, from Scrubs, Bad Monkey, also on Apple TV Plus, which I loved and didn't make my honorable mention list, but was very cute. Shrinking season 2. They are giving us 12 episodes this season, which for an Apple TV show is interesting because we typically will get, 8 to 10 or something. So I appreciate a dozen episodes. It's not something we see a lot of, but this one centers around a group of mental health professionals. We've got Harrison Ford, Jason Segel, Jessica Williams, who is just
she's
a
amazing.
national treasure. I mean, she plays the character Gabby, and she is just hilarious. There is almost nothing she says that I don't laugh at. But what I loved about this show and why it took top billing for me was the level I look forward to watching it each week. When I got that alert on my phone that says new episode of Shrinking available, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to sit down as soon as I can to watch it. Even last night, I said to my husband, hey, as soon as the kids go to bed, we are watching Shrinking. And this penultimate episode of the second season did not disappoint. The end of it has Jimmy unraveling, and there is just this moment where he and Harrison Ford, his character Paul, are sitting on a bench and they embrace each other. And there's very few words spoken, but to feel these palpable emotions through the screen, to watch 2 grown men embracing and really having this emotional connection of a moment, there's just something about that and hitting my full spectrum of emotions, from laughing out loud from one moment to the next moment, wanting to cry, or just getting hit really hard with some of the circumstances these characters are facing. So for that reason, I had to put Shrinking at number 1. We are definitely getting a 3rd season. Bill Lawrence is just such a genius. And this is a comedy, but it deals with a lot of dark subject matter. The main character lost his wife in the first season. He's got a daughter who he's let down in various ways. And these characters struggle with a lot, but the writing is strong. The comedy is just so there. And this show, I absolutely love. And Bill Lawrence is having quite a year for himself. They're actually rebooting Scrubs, which I'm kind of over all of the reboots in general and think we need more original ideas.
Why do we have to redo it? They're still doing the T-Mobile ads. Like, what's going on?
What are we doing? It's crazy. Everything is getting rebooted. I just saw Malcolm in the Middle is coming back for another 4 episodes. Why do we need more Malcolm in the Middle, Craig? Why do we need more?
I just want to say, this is why you need to watch Somebody Somewhere.
Okay.
Because it's not any of that. It's completely its own thing, unique in itself, and it's not any of that. Because I don't need someone to take someone else's idea and repolish it and add CGI and flip it. Oh, let's flip the gender from male to female. Just do like all the flips that they do, and now it's a new show. Well, it's Malcolm, but now it's Malcolm X. I don't know. I don't need it. I love originality. I love uniqueness. Having said that, I understand that I ranked Mr. and Mrs. Smith as my number 4 show, but that's because it's
vastly different.
It's not even anything the same.
No.
It's not even anything the same at all. So, while there is room for repurposed IP and whatnot, and while I know it's ubiquitous in the media world, what's new and what is real and what creates from an authentic place instead of a how can we maximize market share and clickability and stickiness. That's where you find the art. And I think we found some of that in our lists tonight.
Absolutely. And with that, before we get going, what shows are you most looking forward to returning in 2025, Craig?
That's a great question. And it was one that when I saw it on the list, I tried to think like, well, okay, well, what's coming back? And in some sense, I'm like, I'm not 100% sure what everything is coming back. But you did mention one, which is Severance, which
Yes,
was my number
January.
one show the year it came out. That was number one on my rankings the year it came out. So it's a long time waiting for season 2, but I can't wait to get there. That's definitely one for me. How about another one for you? And then I'm trying to remember what the other one I had, and I'm going to get it for you in a second.
Yes. So, as I mentioned, The White Lotus is one. The Last of Us and
Yes.
Stranger Things are a couple I'm very much looking forward to. Yellow Jackets, another one, which I love, is going to be coming back. And I believe Poker Face, Craig, which we both enjoyed last year, is going to be back for another season as well. So that is another one that I just loved, loved, loved. I think that was my number one show the year that came out. So those are a few that I'm looking forward to. But The Last of Us, for a video game adaptation, I mean, I loved Fallout. I'm not a gamer, so it's interesting to me that I do enjoy some of these video game adaptation shows. But The Last of Us was just beautiful. And that is one that I am very, very eagerly looking forward to this year.
Absolutely. And the one that I had forgotten, 2 years separation now, but it was the only Disney Plus show that's ever made a top 10 for me.
Oh.
That's Andor. Andor to me is the single best Star Wars IP ever made, ever.
Okay.
It's like not even close. It's by far the best, and Diego Luna is tremendous on it, and it's just not of a piece of anything else in the Disney Plus Star Wars universe. I would say that basically, other than Mandalorian season 1 and 2, every other show over there for me is no better than a C+. Most of them C's, D's. Andor is an A. Andor is a rock A. Absolutely loved it. So can't wait to see Andor. And of course, there's a new season of Traitors. Can't wait for that.
Oh, yes, I know you like that. And
So-
hey, you also had The Bear season 3 on your honorable mention. So I
Yes.
believe The Bear will also be coming back in 2025 as well. I thought that season was pretty good, but for me, season 1 of The Bear, I think will always be my favorite. So I don't know, we'll see. But great show overall.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we didn't really touch on our honorable mention, so I will say, yeah, I had down there 3 shows that I all thought were really good and that captivated me, but that at some point had a bonk bonk moment, like, something that just I kind of bumped up against. 2 Apple shows were down there for me. Presumed Innocent, which I think was in my top 10 all the way till the last 10 minutes of the last episode, and then fell out, but still was really, really worth it. Was absolutely worth it and was tremendous. And I felt a similar way about Sugar. I actually really thought about putting Sugar in my 10 spot. I thought about it long and hard, but I just thought Fargo season 5 was better executed overall. Because again, there's kind of a
the twist was a little hard to swallow, but Colin Farrell was fantastic. And that was another gorgeous show. It was shot very nicely.
Beautiful.
The way that they wove in that old school Hollywood classic film footage, I thought was very smart. And I struggled with that one on my list as well. It was on like my top 20 and it didn't make my list. But yeah, that was another one it was a good watch.
Yeah. Really good stuff. And listen, it's been so much fun. Like I said before, each week having you on Fridays, you give me shows that I haven't had on my radar at all. I know I've given you some shows that you haven't had on your radar at all, coming at it from slightly different perspectives. But hopefully as a result, everyone out there that's watching and listening has 20 shows, or 16 or 17 or whatever it is shows, between the two of us that you're going to find a little bit of something for everyone. So hopefully there's multiple things in there for whoever, whatever your taste might be out there individually in our listenership.
definitely. I do think it is nice to have both of our perspectives. We do have different tastes. And again, I just want to thank you for having me on the Annie and Elston show on 97.3. And for anyone who's not tuned in, it is the midday show. It is from 10 to 2 p.m., 97.3 The Fan, but it's also available on YouTube and on Odyssey. And if you want to catch our Crossing Stream segment, that is on Fridays around 1:20 p.m. So don't miss it.
Absolutely. You can follow me on Blue Sky at 619 Sports. You can follow me on Instagram at 619 Sports and Life. You can't follow me on X because I ain't there no more. But you can follow me on the other spots, Facebook as well, whatever. But yeah, and also if you happen to be watching this, but you also happen to like the San Diego Padres, the Padres Hot Tub Podcast, and our incredible community is out there going 8 years strong now, and the number one Padres podcast in San Diego.
Craig?
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
That is fantastic. Good for you. It is great. And you know what? Let's also hope the Padres come through in 2025. I know.
Let's hope. Let's simply make our top 10 shows of 2025.
Yes, exactly. But hey, thank you so much. And again, to everybody watching, we hope that you enjoy some of these shows. If you've not heard of some of them, go check them out. We are obviously covering them for a reason. And thanks to everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Media Melanie. It's been great to be here, and hopefully we can do it all again next year. But I can't wait to talk to you Friday and all throughout 2025.
Yes, I'm excited too. Thank you so much, Craig. Talk to you later.
Take care.
All right. Bye.